just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today's the day that I'm gonna film my birth story with little Luke here. He was born August 27th, 2019, and he was born at 34 weeks. He weighed 4 pounds, 1 ounce, and was 17 inches long. Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you guys about his birth story and why he came at 34 weeks and basically just how we got there. So he's just gonna sit here and play while I do this so that he stays kind of entertained. I may end up having to pick him up. I may have to pick him up at some point if he starts getting fussy. But he's currently 7 months old, and yeah, he'll just play away. So to give some backstory first to how we got to a 34-week delivery, let me actually turn this. How we got to his 34-week delivery. I had got to the point where I was having bi-weekly, I guess that's probably not the right term, I think that means every other week. I was having twice a week ultrasounds. After our 20-week scan, we went back 4 weeks later because they didn't get a good picture of his spine, and he was measuring small. He wasn't below the 10th percentile, which they said like that's the threshold where they start worrying if they're below the 10th. He was above the 10th. I think he was like 14. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. And so we went back 4 weeks later so they could get a picture of his spine, and then they remeasured him, and at that appointment he was below the 10th. So they had a talk with us about it and said that that just means like we would come in once a week, just so they can keep an eye on him and make sure that he's getting like nutrients, like everything he needs, and he's still growing. Yeah. Do another toy? Are you lying? And stuff like that. They just said like they watch them closer whenever they're below 10 percentile. And I believe he was 8. So at 24 weeks, I started going every week to have ultrasounds, and how that works is they don't measure everything every single week. Instead, they have like a checklist with like 4 things that they look for. It's been a while now, so I don't know if I can remember, but they look at their Dopplers on their umbilical cord. They measure the fluid around the baby. They look for movements, and then they look for breathing. So those are the 4 things, and then they get graded on that scale. And I think it's like out of 8 points. So they get like 2 points per one for each thing. So that would happen, and they would do that each time, but the first 2 times they would do just that, and then on the 3rd visit they would remeasure him completely and tell us what percentile he's in after that. So we did that for a good while, and he was always like, he always got all his points, he was always looking great and perfectly fine. And it was, I believe, the first week of August. Whoa, or maybe the second week. I think I was 31 or 32 weeks pregnant, and we had our weekly scan, and he did, I don't even think it was a measurement. Okay, here we are a few hours later. He had to just eat and nap, and here we are. Yeah. So he's gonna sit in my lap and play a little bit. I'm gonna try and finish this today because I've tried filming this several times and I don't get to finish it. It's a lot of work to take care of a baby. But okay, so back to where I was. So we were doing our weekly ultrasounds for a while, chugging along, and they were going fine. And then at 31 weeks, I went in for my weekly ultrasound, and they found that his Dopplers were elevated. I'm not quite sure like exactly like the medical stuff with it, but they said basically it meant that my placenta wasn't functioning like it should, and that his body was having to work a little extra hard to get blood and like nutrients from the placenta. So, you know, with my, I don't know if you haven't watched my first trimester update, I kind of talked about the low PAP-A, sorry there's a cat now, the low PAP-A in my nucleotranslucency test with him, and they said that that can kind of point to like placenta problems or preeclampsia or gestational diabetes, or like there's several scary things that it can point to. So they weren't very surprised, but that's like why they were monitoring. So let's see, at that appointment my husband wasn't able to come with me, he had to work, and they said that I would have to start being seen twice a week because of the elevated Dopplers, and it's just like a little bit more serious. So I started going twice a week, and at my 33 week and 6th day, like I was a day before turning 34 weeks, I went and I had an ultrasound, and that's when it got real, because his they were checking the Dopplers, and you know it has like the mountain and the cave. Whenever they do like the baby's heartbeat, or like anyone's heartbeat, it like goes up and down, like there's like a line and then it goes above and below it. His was just going above and not below, and they said that what that meant was that basically the blood flow to him would stop between each heartbeat rhythm, basically, which is like really scary to think about. And so the specialist came in and kind of told me that whenever that happens, they shoot for 34 weeks to deliver. He was like, luckily, you know, you'd be 34 weeks tomorrow, so I'm gonna call your OBGYN, and toy is too loud. You keep dropping it. You wanna play? Call your OBGYN and recommend that they deliver your baby tomorrow. He's like, so you should be getting a call from them. And my husband wasn't with me at that appointment either because it was on a Monday, and he had to work, and I remember leaving and calling him. I was hysterical. I mean, not surprisingly, I was very upset, and told him what they had said. So he ended up leaving work that day and starting his paternity leave that day, because he wanted to come home and be with me, and we still had like things to get done. Like we didn't expect to have our baby at 34 weeks. So there was like a little bit of uncertainty, you know, if my doctor was really gonna do it the next day, because it just kind of depended on their schedule, and he was not head down, so they said I would most likely have to have a C-section, which I was also upset about because he had been head down until the 31-week appointment, and then he like flipped around, and I remember feeling it, like a huge like tugging, and he like flipped around. So yeah, so it kind of depended on their schedule. Well, whenever I got the call from the doctor's office later that day, they just said, we got the message, you know, we'll want to see you tomorrow. But it was just like the receptionist who called to tell us anything. Like it wasn't even like the nurse, and she like didn't tell us if we were going to deliver him, but the specialist just said we needed to have him by Thursday that week at the latest, and this was on Tuesday, so we needed to have him within like the next 3 days. So yeah, that was a crazy day. Like it's kind of a blur because it was a crazy day. Okay, so anyway, that night we like went and got like as many last minute things as we could. Also, I feel like I should back up a little bit and not quite go into that appointment yet, because I didn't mention that at the appointment, I believe it was I was like 32 weeks and I had an OBGYN appointment and I was experiencing high blood pressure. And it was like at the threshold for preeclampsia. So they sent me to the hospital to do a preeclampsia workup. And so they did a urine sample and they did some blood work, and they said that because they do like the blood work to look at like your liver and your kidney and all your like the functions of your organs to make sure you're not like experiencing eclampsia and stuff isn't starting to like shut down or anything like that. So they did that and my blood work came back normal. The urine test did have protein. I did have protein in my urine. So they sent me home with a 24-hour urine collection, which if you have to do one, it's disgusting because you have to keep the urine cold. So either you have to like keep it in an ice chest with like ice and stuff, or you have to keep it in your fridge. And yeah, it was just disgusting. So I had to do it for 24 hours and then take it back. And at that time they decided to go ahead and give me some steroid shots in case if you had to be delivered early because of preeclampsia, because I was showing signs of preeclampsia. And they just wanted to be safe. And my doctor felt like it was, you know, a good decision because his Dopplers were already elevated, and she just wanted to be safe, and I'm really glad that she was. So, okay, so we're back to playing. Sorry, this video is not very organized. I'm just trying to get it done. As I was saying, I did have my steroid shots, and I had them whenever I was 33 weeks. I was in my 33-week appointment whenever they saw that I had started getting signs of preeclampsia. They gave me my first shot whenever I went for the workup, and then whenever I had to take my urine back 2 days later, because I had to do like a full 24 hours, and they just had me bring it back like 2 days later, I got my second steroid shot. And there were a few times like after his Dopplers were elevated that, like, you know, I was really watching my kid counts and stuff, and I was just like on edge. So I'd go in to like get monitored for movements and stuff, and so I was like familiar with the ladies at the hospital because they would monitor me for movements and stuff, so just to make sure that he was okay. Because I feel like that would put anybody on edge to hear that anything is wrong with your placenta. Like, that's very big, so it's kind of needed, you know. So but they like did that for me anyway. So we will go back to what I was saying. At my appointment the next day after I was told I was going to have him, my doctor came in and she said, well, let's have this baby today. And I was just like, okay. And she's like, my goal is to have him out of you by noon. And it was like 9:30 or 10 at that point. And I was like, okay. And she's like, from here you're gonna go straight to the hospital and we'll just go ahead and do a C-section. And I was like, well, I had done all the things the night before to try and get him to rotate, because they had said that I could try natural if he was in the right position by the time it was time for them to take him. So I did like all the things, you know, about spinning babies or whatever, and I wanted her to check to see if he was head down, because if he wasn't, wanted to try to have him naturally. So she like felt my belly and she's like, well, like, he feels like it. She's like, let's confirm with an ultrasound. So we went back down to the waiting room and had to wait for the ultrasound tech to get a minute, and she like pulled us in there and did it, and he was head down, and I cried because I was like, I was just like so scared of a C-section. I just wanted to have him naturally so bad. I didn't want to have surgery. So he was head down and I was so happy that I cried, and from there we headed straight to the hospital. And we had to get like checked in, and they had to like start everything. It took forever. Just like, you have to go through so many questions and get checked in. So they got me in a room and they started, I think it was Cytotec, to help your like thin your cervix. No Pitocin or anything yet, but they needed to like try and thin my cervix first. So they like hooked me up to the machines, and they were like watching everything, and my blood pressure was high. It was like in the 160s over, I don't even know, like 110. It was really high. So I ended up getting preeclampsia with him. And so it was like perfect timing that he was coming, because he was probably gonna have to come early anyway because of the preeclampsia. But mom was swollen and had high blood pressure, and it was crazy. And then they had like their shift change at like 6, and the new nurse came in, and we like met her and stuff, and she popped back in about like 8, I think it was, and she said, well, if you're gonna eat anything else, you probably need to eat now. She's like, you can't have anything past 10 o'clock. So I was like, okay, like I didn't know I could eat anything else. So I really was craving like hardcore Chick-fil-A, like a Chick-fil-A sandwich. So we sent my sister to get me a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and then her and my husband wanted something different. So it was like 9, remember, she got back, and I ate my Chick-fil-A because the nurse had said it'd probably be the next day or the next day before we had him. And she brought my sandwich, and I ate it, and literally as soon as I finished eating it, my doctor comes in, and she was like, well, she's like, he's looking like a very sleepy baby, which is scary. Like, you don't want to hear that, because that's what they look for whenever they do your monitoring. She said he's looking like a very sleepy baby, like he's very tired. So we need to have a C-section and get him out. And I was upset, you know, because I didn't want to do a C-section, and I was like, okay. And then my sister, she's a nurse, and she's like, she just ate. And my doctor's like, she's always eating. Because I had just eaten before my appointment too. But like, my nurse came in and told me, like, she was like, you need to eat now. So it was just like a big miscommunication with them. But my sister was like, she just ate. And then the doctor was like, well, let me think about this for a little bit, and I will come back and give you a game plan. Because for anyone who doesn't know, if you're not supposed to eat, I believe it's like 4 hours before you have like surgery, any kind of surgery, because there is the risk of aspirating, and then you can aspirating into your like puking and aspirating into your, like, they want your stomach to be completely empty before they do any kind of surgery, because it's just a very high risk, you know, thing if you have eaten and your stomach isn't empty. So she like went out into the hallway, and she came back in like 10 minutes, and she's like, with how he's looking, she's like, I don't feel comfortable making him wait 4 hours. She's like, he needs to be born. So she's like, what's gonna happen is, you know, someone's gonna come in, and they're gonna start getting you ready and like prepped for surgery. And she's like, and then the anesthesiologist is gonna come in and talk to you. And by this point I was like hysterically bawling, like not like out loud hysterically bawling, but like I could not control the tears. My face was really red. It was bad. And I was just like crying because it was just hard. And she said like the anesthesiologist will come in, and he's gonna talk to you about what happened. He's gonna talk to like my husband and my sister too, to let them know what to expect. And so he came in and like talked to us, and then the NICU nurse came over to like get some information from us too, because he would be sent straight to the NICU. Even if he like didn't have to stay, like they still do like a full workup if they're born at 37 weeks or before. They get a full NICU workup. So she came to get some information, and yeah, so let me just also go to say we didn't have a birth plan, like a traditional one, because I had heard that there's like, you know, bad juju around the birth plans. You don't want to like do them really. Some people do and they work out fine, but I didn't want to do one, like at least a very specific one. And I remember asking for like 2 things. One was that I wanted skin to skin, And then the other one was that my husband wanted to be able to cut the cord. And I was like, you know, those are two very common things that people get. Surely, you know, that's not like crazy, you know, so we should be able to get those no problem. And we didn't get either one. Because whenever you have a C-section under general anesthesia, and mine was considered an emergency C-section because from the time she told me I was going to have a C-section to the time it happened, it was within, I believe it's like a 30-minute time frame. It was fast. That's considered like they get them out an emergency C-section, and maybe like an hour before an hour, but it was very fast. But if you go under general anesthesia, there can be no one in the room with you. So my husband wasn't even able to be there to see him born. I had to go in there by myself, which was terrifying. I did not, like, I wanted my husband to be able to hold my hand, and instead I had to go in by myself. I remember them putting me out, and then like waking up, and I woke up to gagging. I thought I had puked because I woke up and I remember asking, did I throw up? And they were like, no. But I woke up gagging and I was crying, and I remember them asking me why I was crying, and I said I want to see my baby. And the anesthesiologist was like pushing the bed back into the room, and he had told me and my sister, which all like these memories are like very vague after the surgery, because I was coming out of anesthesia. Like you see the videos of the kids, you know, after their wisdom teeth removal, kind of the same thing, but I feel like I wasn't like saying crazy stuff. I was just like sad. I was sad. So he told my sister that I could go see my baby in an hour. He was born at 10:20 p.m. by the way. So my sister was like trying to talk to me and calm me down, and was like, you know, you gotta stop crying, you know, if you want to go see your baby in an hour, and you just gotta breathe, because I had like the oxygen mask on, just like, you just gotta calm down. And then like my nurse comes in whenever it had been close to an hour, and my sister was like, well, the anesthesiologist said she could go see him in an hour, and she's like, no, she needs to wait 2 hours. And I remember that was like devastating, but it was like, it turned out it was like 2 hours from the time that she said that, so I had to wait a total of 3 hours to get back there to see my baby in the NICU. So whenever I went into surgery, I asked my husband to go with Luke to make sure that he was okay, and then I asked my sister to stay in the room and wait for me. So he went to be with Luke, and he was sending my sister pictures for me to look at. And I remember like I kept asking my sister, like, can I see that picture again? Because like I couldn't, like I would see the picture of him, and then like I would immediately forget and have to look at it again because of the anesthesia. Like I wasn't remembering the picture. Huh. So hi, what are you doing? What are you doing? You wanna play with this? Wanna play with your frog? So yeah, I will try to insert the clip of whenever I first met Luke, or got to hold him.
Fine with our cords. Feels like a little potato.
But I got to hold him, and it was so magical. That's pretty much the gist of the birth story. Very long-winded. There's a lot to tell, like a lot happened. Yep. He was born at 34 weeks, 4 pounds 1 ounce, 17 inches long, and he was born at 10:20 p.m. on August 27th. And yeah, he was perfect. His name is Luke Allen Schneider. Luke Allen Schneider. And We love him so much. Now he's 7 months and he weighs 18 pounds. He has grown so well. Like, his pediatrician has been very happy with his growth. So yeah, but I may try to find time to do another update on like just like the NICU experience, because that's like a whole nother video in itself. He ended up being in the NICU for almost a month. So yeah. So I could talk about that and it'd be its whole other video, because this one's already pretty long. Yeah. Goodness. But yeah, so that was our story. His little birth story, and I just wanted to get this recorded because I just wanted to get this recorded because it is hard to sit down and do these videos anymore. But he came in like a whirlwind, and we're so glad that he's here. And I just love him so much. My heart is so full. But, are you gonna talk to him? Say hi. Hey. You're so cute. You're so cute. Do you see yourself in there? Yeah. All right, until next time. You say bye? We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
My life was great.